The ticking of the clock in Dr. Mason's office seemed unusually loud that Tuesday afternoon. I sat there, my hands trembling as I clutched the journal she'd given me 3 sessions ago. Inside were the dark secrets I've been carrying for 16 years. "Take your time, Sophia," Dr. Mason said softly, her kind eyes watching me with patience I didn't deserve. At least, that's what my parents always said. I didn't deserve kindness. I opened the journal to the dog-eared page and began reading in a whisper. October 15th. Dad threw away my medication again. Said I was faking my ADHD for attention. Mom watched and laughed. Couldn't focus in class. Failed my history test. They locked me in the basement for 4 hours as punishment. Dr. Mason's pen stopped moving. I could feel her tension, but I continued. October 18th. Found out Mom's been cashing my grandmother's checks, meant for my college fund. When I confronted her, she slapped me and said I was ungrateful. Dad threatened to send me to military school if I told anyone. My voice cracked, but I forced myself to continue. This was my 3rd session with Dr. Mason, and the first time I'd found the courage to share my journal. The school counselor had arranged these therapy sessions after noticing my declining grades and concerning behavior. My parents had only agreed because it looked good to their country club friends. Having a daughter in therapy meant they were progressive parents. October 20th. They're getting worse. Mom sold my laptop, the one I saved up for my tutoring jobs. Said I didn't deserve nice things. When I cried, Dad made me kneel on rice in the corner while they ate dinner. They invited their friends over, told them I was being punished for stealing. Everyone laughed. Dr. Mason set her notepad down. "Sophia, how long has this been going on?" I stared at my worn sneakers, the only pair of shoes I owned. "As long as I can remember, but it got worse after Grandma died last year. She was the only one who protected me, who loved me, who saw me." "Have you told anyone else?" I laughed bitterly. "They made sure I knew better. Who'll believe a worthless kid like you?" That's their favorite line, and they're right. They're respected doctors in the community. Mom runs charity events. Dad's on the hospital board. I'm just their screw-up daughter who can't even get straight A's. "You're not a screw-up, Sophia," Dr. Mason said firmly, "and I believe you." Those 3 words hit me like a physical force. I believe you. When was the last time anyone had said that to me? Yesterday, I continued, my voice stronger now. I found out they've been forging my signature on documents. They're selling the house Grandma left me in her will. They said if I told anyone, they'd tell everyone about my mental problems and have me committed. Dr. Mason's face remained professional, but I saw something flash in her eyes. "Sophia, what you've described isn't just abuse. It's criminal behavior. Financial fraud, medical neglect, physical and emotional abuse." "Please," I interrupted, panic rising. "You can't tell anyone. They'll know it was me." They'll what?" she asked gently. "What are you afraid they'll do?" I hugged myself, remembering last week's lesson in gratitude that left bruises hidden under my long sleeves. They always know when I've talked. Always, and then A knock at the office door made me jump. Dr. Mason's assistant poked her head in. "They're here." My heart stopped. "Who's here?" Dr. Mason leaned forward. "Sophia, I need you to listen carefully. After our first session, when you mentioned your parents withholding your medication, I had a legal obligation to report it. What you've shared today only confirms my initial concerns. Child Protective Services is here, along with the police." The room started spinning. No. You don't understand. They'll say I'm lying. They always do. Nobody ever believes. "I believe you," Dr. Mason repeated firmly. "And this time, we have evidence. Your journal. Your medical records showing inconsistent medication access. The financial documents you mentioned. The bruises I know you're hiding under those sleeves." I clutched my arms protectively. "How did you?" "I've been doing this for 15 years, Sophia. I know the signs. And I've spent the last 2 weeks building a case to protect you. Your parents won't be able to hurt you anymore." As if on cue, I heard familiar voices in the waiting room. My parents, their fake sweet social voices carrying through the door. "We're here to pick up our daughter. Dr. Mason should be expecting us." But for the first time in my life, their voices didn't paralyze me with fear. Because this time, I wasn't alone. This time, someone had believed me before I'd even found the courage to tell the whole truth. Dr. Mason stood up, her posture protective. "Are you ready?" I looked at my journal, thinking of Grandma, thinking of all the nights I cried silently in my room. thinking of the little girl I used to be who deserved so much better. Yes, I whispered, standing up. I'm ready. Little did my parents know, their reign of terror was about to end. And this time, someone had already believed me. The next hour unfolded like a scene from someone else's life. I watched through Dr. Mason's office window as two police officers approached my parents in the waiting room. Mom's perfectly composed face crumpled when they started reading her rights. Dad's confident smile vanished when the CPS worker presented him with documentation of their years of abuse. This is ridiculous. Mom's voice reached through the walls. We're respected members of this community. Do you know who we are? Yes, Mrs. Anderson, the female officer replied coldly. We know exactly who you are, and who you've been pretending to be. A social worker named Ms. Torres sat with me in Dr. Mason's office, explaining what would happen next. We have enough evidence for emergency removal, she said gently. You won't have to go home with them today, or ever again, if that's what you want. But where will I go? The question came out small, frightened. Your grandmother's sister, your great-aunt Elizabeth, has already agreed to take temporary custody. She's been trying to contact you for months. My heart jumped. Aunt Liz? Mom had always said she was dead, just like she'd said about all of Grandma's family. She's alive? I whispered. Miss Torres nodded, her eyes sad. Your parents have been intercepting her letters and calls. She became concerned when she couldn't reach you after your grandmother's death, especially regarding the house that was left to you. The house? My sanctuary during the brief visits Grandma had allowed before she got sick. The one place I felt safe. They were trying to sell it, I said. They tried, Miss Torres corrected. But they couldn't. Your grandmother's will was very specific. The house belongs to you, in a trust it can't touch. Aunt Elizabeth is the trustee. A commotion outside drew our attention. Dad was arguing loudly with the officers. She's manipulating you, he shouted. She's always been a problem child. Ask anyone. Dr. Mason stepped into the hallway. I did ask Dr. Anderson. I asked her teachers, who noticed the signs of neglect. I asked her previous doctors, who reported suspicious gaps in her medication schedule. I even asked her colleagues at the hospital, who witnessed your disciplinary discussions with your daughter in the parking lot. Mom's fake sobs echoed through the building. We only wanted what's best for her. Everything we did was for her own good. Making her kneel on rice was for her good. Dr. Mason's voice was steel. Selling her possessions, stealing her inheritance, forging her signature. You have no proof, Dad snarled. Actually, said a new voice, Detective Warner, according to his badge, we have quite a lot of proof, including video footage from your neighbor's security camera showing you locking your daughter out of the house last week, in the rain, at midnight. I heard Mom's sharp intake of breath. They hadn't known about the cameras. Miss Torres touched my arm gently. Sophia, we can leave through the back door. You don't have to see them. But something had shifted inside me. Hearing them try to lie, to manipulate, to control the narrative, it sparked something new. Not fear, but anger. No, I said, standing up. I want them to see me leave. Dr. Mason smiled proudly. Are you sure? I nodded, clutching my journal, my evidence, my truth, to my chest. Walking into that waiting room was the hardest thing I'd ever done. Mom's mascara was streaked with fake tears. Dad's face was red with rage. They both froze when they saw me. Sophia, Mom said sweetly, darling, tell them this is all a misunderstanding. Tell them how much we love you. I looked at her perfectly manicured hands, hands that had slapped me countless times. At Dad's expensive watch, bought with money stolen from my college fund. I already told them the truth, I said, my voice steady, and this time, someone believed me. You ungrateful little. Dad started forward, but the officers blocked him. Goodbye, I said simply, turning away from their shocked faces. Miss Torres led me out to her car, explaining that Aunt Liz was already on her way from Oregon. We'd stay in a safe house until she arrived. As we drove away, I saw my parents being led to separate police cars in my rearview mirror. Mom was still crying dramatically. Dad was demanding his phone call. Are you okay? Miss Torres asked softly. I watched my childhood prison disappear around the corner. The weight of 16 years of abuse seemed to lift slightly from my shoulders. No, I answered honestly, but I think I will be. She smiled. Your Aunt Elizabeth. She sounds a lot like your grandmother. She's been fighting to find you for months. She never stopped believing something was wrong. I opened my journal, looking at the pages of pain that had become my key to freedom. I never thought anyone would believe me over them. That's what abusers do, Ms. Torres said. They isolate you, make you doubt yourself, but they're not in control anymore. You are. As we drove toward my new future, I felt something unfamiliar bloom in my chest. It took me a moment to recognize it. Hope. 1 year later, I stood in Grandma's garden, my garden now, watching the sunset paint the Oregon sky in shades of pink and gold. The roses she planted were blooming, their scent mixing with the salty ocean breeze that drifted up from the coast. The trial had ended 3 months ago. My journal, combined with the mountain of evidence Dr. Mason and the investigators had gathered, left no room for my parents' carefully constructed lies. They'd been sentenced to 8 years each, not just for the abuse, but for the financial fraud and medical negligence. Tea's ready, sweetheart. Aunt Liz called from the porch. She was so different from Mom. Soft where Mom was sharp, warm where Mom was cold. She wore comfortable gardening clothes instead of designer suits, and her laugh was real, not practiced for an audience. I joined her on the porch swing, accepting a mug of chamomile tea. My therapist, a new one, chosen by me this time, said small comforts were important for healing. A year ago, I wouldn't have believed I deserved even this simple pleasure. Letter came from the foundation today, Aunt Liz said, trying to sound casual. We both knew what that meant. The Foundation for Youth Advocacy had reached out 6 months ago, asking me to share my story. At first, I'd refused, still struggling with shame and fear. But then I received a letter from another teenager who'd been saved because a teacher recognized the signs of abuse I described in my testimony. I'll do it, I said, surprising myself. I'll speak at their conference. Aunt Liz squeezed my hand. Your grandmother would be so proud of you. I got another letter from Mom yesterday, I added quietly. And? I didn't open it. Dr. Patterson says I don't have to read them if I'm not ready. I took a sip of tea. Maybe I'll never be ready, and that's okay. Yes, it is, Aunt Liz agreed. You get to set the boundaries now. My phone buzzed. A text from Dr. Mason, who still checked in regularly. Thinking of you. Conference materials arrived. When you're ready to tell your story, I'll be there to support you. Proud of how far you've come. I smiled, remembering that terrified girl in her office a year ago. I barely recognized her now. The changes weren't just internal. I'd grown stronger, healthier. My ADHD was properly managed with regular medication. My grades had improved enough to earn a scholarship to the state university, where I planned to study psychology next fall. Ms. Torres called, Aunt Liz said. The support group you suggested? They're starting it next month. They want you to help design the program. The support group had been my idea, a safe space for teenagers with respectable parents like mine, whose abuse was hidden behind social status and community standing, a place where they would be believed. Did I tell you Jennifer finally left her parents' house? I said, referring to a girl I'd met through the preliminary support group meetings. She showed her teacher the bruises, said if I could speak up, so could she. Aunt Liz wiped away a tear. You're changing lives, Sophia. They saved mine first, I replied, thinking of Dr. Mason, Ms. Torres, and all the others who had believed me when it mattered most. The sun had almost set now, turning the garden into a soft twilight sanctuary. In the distance, I could hear the ocean, constant, powerful, free, like I was becoming. My phone buzzed again. This time it was a text from Jennifer. Did it. Finally told the whole truth. Police believed me. I'm safe now. Thank you for showing me it was possible. I showed the message to Aunt Liz, who pulled me into a gentle hug, the kind that asked for nothing in return. You know what your grandmother used to say, she murmured. Truth is like those roses out there. Sometimes it has thorns, sometimes it seems too delicate to survive, but given the right care and courage to bloom, it becomes something beautiful. I looked out at the garden, at the house that had become my true home, at the life I was building from the ashes of the one my parents had tried to destroy. Next week, I said, when I speak at the conference, I'm going to tell them that the most powerful words in the world are I believe you, because sometimes that's all someone needs to hear to find their strength. Aunt Liz smiled, handed me a cookie, the kind I'd never been allowed before, and together we watched the stars appear in the darkening sky. Each one seemed to whisper what I now knew to be true. I was believed, I was safe, I was free. And somewhere another child was gathering the courage to speak their truth. When they did, I would be there to say those magic words. I believe you. Get your screaming brats out of my wedding, Sarah shrieked, jabbing her perfectly manicured finger at my chest. I can't have them ruining my perfect day with their chaos. I stood in her pristinely decorated living room, the invitation still clutched in my hand, staring at my sister-in-law in disbelief. My children, Emma, 6, and Lucas, 4. Won't she just call brats? Were at home with their father, blissfully unaware that their aunt was uninviting them from her wedding just 3 days before the ceremony. Sarah, they're your niece and nephew, I said, keeping my voice steady despite the anger bubbling inside me. The same kids you asked to be your flower girl and ring bearer 6 months ago. The ones who've been practicing their roles every day. Well, I've changed my mind, she snapped, snatching the invitation from my hand. I saw how they behaved at the rehearsal dinner last night, running around, laughing too loud. It was embarrassing. My wedding needs to be perfect, and your kids will ruin everything. I thought about Emma in her little flower girl dress, twirling in front of the mirror, asking every day how many more sleeps until she could throw petals at Aunt Sarah's wedding. I thought about Lucas carefully carrying his pillow around the house, practicing his serious ring-bearer face. They were excited. I defended. It was past their bedtime, and they were happy to be part of your special day. They're children, Sarah. They act like children. Exactly, she exclaimed as if I'd proven her point. I can't have children acting like children at my wedding. I've decided to make it an adults-only event. Well, except for Madison's kids, they know how to behave properly. Madison was Sarah's best friend. Her 3 children were known in the family for being perpetually glued to their tablets, barely interacting with anyone. Of course, they'd be allowed to stay. You can't do this to them, I said, my voice finally betraying my emotion. Emma will be heartbroken. Sarah's face hardened. I can, and I am. In fact, she paused, a cruel smile playing at her lips. Maybe you should stay home too. I don't want you guilt-tripping everyone about your precious little angels missing out. My mother-in-law chose that moment to walk in, carrying a box of wedding favors. Sarah, honey, what's going on? I heard raised voices. Nothing, Mom, Sarah said sweetly. I was just explaining to Lisa that the wedding is now adults only. We want it to be sophisticated, you know. I watched as my mother-in-law's face fell slightly, but she quickly masked it. Oh well, if that's what you want, dear. It's your special day. Of course, she'd take Sarah's side. She always did. I'll let Tom and the kids know, I said quietly, gathering my purse. As I turned to leave, Sarah called after me. Don't forget to return the flower girl dress and ring bearer outfit. I need a refund since they won't be used. I froze in the doorway, her words hitting me like a physical blow. The outfits I pay for myself. The ones my children have been so proud of. Keep them, I said without turning around. Consider them a wedding gift. As I drove home, my hands gripped the steering wheel so tightly my knuckles turned white. I wasn't just angry, I was livid. This wasn't about wedding etiquette or sophisticated ceremonies. This was Sarah doing what she'd always done, asserting her control, proving she could hurt us whenever she wanted. Tom was in the backyard with the kids when I got home. Emma was still practicing her petal throwing, scattering dandelions across the grass while Lucas followed behind her with his pillow. The sight made my heart ache. Mommy, Emma called out, running to me. Look, I'm getting better at making the petals go up high. I hugged her tightly, breathing in the sweet scent of her shampoo. You sure are, baby. What did Aunt Sarah want? Tom asked, noticing my expression. Inside, I mouthed over the kids' heads. Once we'd sent them off to play in their room, I told him everything. She did what? Tom's face reddened with anger. I'll call her right now. I grabbed his arm. No, getting angry is exactly what she wants. She's trying to provoke us, to make us look like the difficult ones. Then what do? We can't let her treat our kids like this. I smiled, an idea forming in my mind. Actually, I have a better plan. But I'll need your help. The next morning, I made some calls. First to my friend Jessica, who worked at the same wedding venue where Sarah's reception would be held. Then to Madison's ex-husband, who'd been trying to reach her about the kids' tablet addiction. Finally, to Grandma Rose, the family matriarch, who'd been suspiciously left off the wedding guest list despite being the one who helped fund the entire event. 3 days, I told Tom that evening. In 3 days, Sarah's going to learn that actions have consequences. He looked at me curiously. What are you planning? I showed him the email I'd just received from Jessica, confirming certain arrangements for the reception. His eyes widened as he read it. Are you sure about this? He asked. I thought about Emma and Lucas, about their excitement turned to confusion when we told them they couldn't be in the wedding anymore, about Sarah's smug face as she uninvited us. Oh yes, I said, hitting reply on the email. I'm very sure. The morning of Sarah's wedding arrived bright and clear. As I helped Emma into her favorite dress, not the flower girl gown that now hung untouched in her closet, she looked up at me with big brown eyes. Mommy, why are we going to the park instead of Aunt Sarah's wedding? I knelt to her level, straightening her bow. Because today we're having our own special adventure. And guess what? Cousin Jack and Lily will be there too. That news brightened her face. Madison's ex-husband had agreed to take their kids for the day, finally putting his foot down about attending yet another event where they'd be ignored in favor of their tablets. But what about my flower petals? She asked, her lower lip trembling slightly. We'll bring some to the park, I promised, kissing her forehead. You can practice throwing them as high as you want. As Tom took the kids to the car, I checked my phone. 3 messages waited. From Jessica. Everything's set up exactly as you requested. You were right about the venue contract. From Grandma Rose. Just arrived at the church. Sarah's face when she saw me was priceless. Don't worry, dear. I'll handle things from here. From Madison's ex. Kids are with me. They're actually talking and playing for once. Madison's been calling nonstop. Perfect. What Sarah didn't know, what she hadn't bothered to check, was that I was the one who had originally booked the reception venue. 6 months ago, when she was overwhelmed with wedding planning, I'd offered to help. I'd signed the contract, paid the deposit, and handled all the arrangements. The venue was officially reserved under my name. And I just made some last-minute changes. Are you sure you don't want to watch this unfold in person? Tom asked as we drove to the park. I shook my head. No need. Jessica will record everything. Besides, I'd rather spend the day with our kids. The park was beautiful this time of year, full of blooming flowers, perfect for petal throwing practice. We set up a picnic under a large oak tree, and I watched as Emma taught Lucas how to make flower crowns. Around 4 p.m., just as Sarah's reception would be starting, my phone buzzed with a video from Jessica. You have to see this, she texted. I waited until the kids were engrossed in their games before watching it. The footage showed Sarah and her new husband arriving at the reception venue, her white dress flowing behind her as she swept through the doors, and then stopping dead in her tracks. Instead of the elegant, sophisticated decoration scheme she had planned, the reception hall had been transformed into a children's paradise. Bright balloons filled the ceiling, cartoon character cutouts stood at every table, and a massive bounce house dominated one corner. A sign hung over the entrance, "Welcome to the Family Fun Reception." But that wasn't all. Every table was set with plastic plates featuring popular children's characters, complete with party hats and noisemakers. The fancy champagne had been replaced with juice boxes. The sophisticated string quartet had been swapped for a beloved local children's entertainer. Sarah's face went from shock to furious as she stormed around the room, taking in every detail of her ruined, perfect reception. The video caught her confronting the venue manager, her voice rising to a shriek. This isn't what we planned. This is a nightmare. I'm sorry, ma'am, the manager replied calmly. But these changes were requested by the person who holds the venue contract. We were legally obligated to comply. What? But I'm the bride. The contract is under Lisa's name. She made these changes yesterday, well within the modification window. The video showed Sarah's face turning an interesting shade of purple as she spun around, probably looking for me. But of course, I wasn't there. Then Grandma Rose stepped into frame, her elegant suit a stark contrast to the colorful chaos around her. Sarah, dear, she said, her voice carrying that special tone that had kept the family in line for generations. We need to talk about your recent decisions. The video ended there, but Jessica kept the updates coming. Madison just arrived without her kids. She's having a meltdown. Half the guests are loving the bounce house. The other half are asking why your kids aren't here. Sarah tried to take down the decorations, but everything's secured with industrial strength adhesive. Your mother-in-law just had to sit down. I think she's finally realizing what Sarah did. I put my phone away and joined my children in the grass. Emma had made flower crowns for everyone, and Lucas was carefully placing his on Tom's head. This was exactly where we needed to be. Later that evening, after we had tucked the kids into bed, Tom showed me the flood of messages he had received from family members. Most were supportive, having finally seen Sarah's true colors. A few were angry, mostly those who had been in on her plans all along. "Ida shall never forgive you for this," he said, but he was smiling. "Good," I replied. "I'm done forgiving her for hurting our children." My phone lit up with a final message from Jessica. "Just finished cleaning up. You'll never believe what Grandma Rose did." Attached was a photo of the wedding guest book. There, on the first page, in Grandma Rose's elegant handwriting, was a message. "Dear Sarah, today was meant to be a celebration of family. Instead, you chose to exclude the very people who represent its future. Your actions have shown me that perhaps it's time to reconsider certain arrangements. We'll discuss this at Sunday dinner. Love, Grandma." I knew what that meant. Grandma Rose had been planning to sign over her vacation house to Sarah, the same house where we had all spent our summers growing up. It seemed those plans had changed. "Was it worth it?" Tom asked, wrapping his arms around me. I thought about Emma and Lucas, about the joy on their faces as they played in the park today, unburdened by rejection or judgment, about the lesson they'd learn from this someday, that they were worth standing up for. "Every penny," I replied. The fallout from Sarah's ruined wedding reception spread through the family like wildfire. Videos of the children's paradise I created had somehow made their way to various family members' social media, showing everyone exactly what had happened. The next morning, my phone exploded with notifications. Sarah had posted a lengthy rant about how I destroyed her special day and traumatized her guests with the childish decorations. The comments, however, weren't quite what she'd expected. "Why weren't Emma and Lucas there? They're such sweet kids. Hold up, you uninvited your own niece and nephew 3 days before the wedding. Those party decorations look amazing. My kids would have loved that." By noon, Sarah had deleted the post. My mother-in-law called around dinner time, her voice uncharacteristically hesitant. "Lisa, I need to apologize. I should have said something when Sarah uninvited the kids. I just didn't want to cause drama." "No," I replied calmly, watching Emma and Lucas playing in the backyard through the kitchen window. "You didn't want to stand up to Sarah. There's a difference." She was quiet for a moment. "You're right. I've enabled her behavior for too long. But after what Grandma Rose said at the reception." Ah yes, Grandma Rose. According to Jessica, after that first message in the guest book, our family matriarch had spent the entire reception sharing stories about Sarah's childhood tantrums and pattern of cruel behavior. By the time she finished, several guests had left early, muttering about family values and poor leadership. "What exactly did Grandma Rose say?" I asked, genuinely curious. My mother-in-law sighed. She announced that the vacation house would be going to you and Tom instead. Said something about needing it to be in the hands of people who understand family values. I hadn't expected that. The vacation house had been a point of contention for years, with Sarah constantly reminding everyone how she'd be turning it into a luxury rental property once she inherited it. "Sarah's furious, of course," my mother-in-law continued. "She and her husband had already started looking at property management companies." "That's not my problem," I replied, just like my children's feelings weren't her problem. The next Sunday dinner at Grandma Rose's was interesting, to say the least. Sarah and her new husband didn't show up, but everyone else did, including Madison's ex-husband with their kids, who were actually engaging in conversation instead of staring at screens. Grandma Rose took me aside after dinner, her eyes twinkling. "I saw the video of what you did at the reception," she said. "Brilliant. Absolutely brilliant." "I couldn't let her hurt my kids like that," I explained. She patted my hand. "Of course not. That's exactly why you're getting the house. Family means protecting each other, not tearing each other down." Sarah never understood that. 2 weeks later, we received a formal letter from Sarah's lawyer demanding compensation for her ruined reception. I forwarded it to my own lawyer, along with the venue contract in my name and documentation of Sarah's last-minute guest list changes. His response was succinct. "She doesn't have a leg to stand on. The venue was legally yours to modify." Sarah's next move was to try turning the family against me through a series of emotional social media posts about toxic family members and narcissistic sisters-in-law. But the tide had turned. People had seen her true colors, and they weren't backing down this time. Emma and Lucas, thankfully, remained largely unaware of the drama. We told them Aunt Sarah had to change her wedding plans, and they'd moved on with the resilience only children possess. The flower girl dress and ring bearer outfit were carefully packed away, not as painful reminders, but as evidence of a lesson learned about standing up for what's right. 3 months after the wedding, we hosted our first family gathering at the vacation house. Sarah wasn't there, of course, but the place was filled with laughter and joy. Children ran through the halls, played in the yard, and yes, made noise, because that's what children do. As I watched Emma teaching her cousins how to make flower crowns on the beach, the same skill she perfected that day in the park, Tom came up beside me. "You know," he said, wrapping an arm around my shoulders, "Sarah called me yesterday. Said she's ready to forgive us if we agree to sell her the vacation house." I laughed. "And what did you say?" "I told her that some things aren't for sale, like our children's dignity, for instance. Looking at our kids playing on the beach at the family finally free from Sarah's manipulation, I knew we'd made the right choice. Sometimes the best revenge isn't about getting even. It's about creating something better from the ashes of someone else's cruelty." "Mom," Emma called from the beach, "come see. We made crowns for everyone." As I walked down to join them, leaving thoughts of Sarah and her perfect wedding behind, I couldn't help but smile. Our children would grow up knowing they were valued, protected, and worth standing up for. And in the end, that was worth more than any wedding, any house, or any relationship built on conditional love. The flower crowns we wore that day weren't made of expensive roses or carefully curated blooms. They were made of wild beach flowers, a little crooked, a little messy, but absolutely perfect. Just like family should be. "Are you joking, Daniel?" I stared at my phone, rereading the text message from my son. "Mom, I think it's best if you don't come to the wedding. We want to avoid any confusion or awkward situations. My name is Olivia Parker, and at 48, I never imagined I'd be uninvited from my own son's wedding because I looked too young." The text had come just 3 weeks before the ceremony, after months of helping with preparations and paying for half the venue. I called Daniel immediately, my hands shaking as I pressed his number. When he answered, his voice was distant, formal, a tone I'd never heard from him before. "Mom, Sarah's just concerned about the photos and how it might look. You know, with you looking more like a sister than a mother." He trailed off, clearly uncomfortable. Sarah, my soon-to-be daughter-in-law, had always been polite but cold since she and Daniel got engaged. Now everything was starting to make sense. The way she'd excluded me from dress shopping, the bridal shower I wasn't invited to, the rehearsal dinner that suddenly became immediate family only. "Daniel, I'm your mother. I gave birth to you when I was 19. Just because I take care of myself doesn't mean I should be excluded from your wedding." My voice cracked despite my attempts to stay calm. "Sarah thinks it might be uncomfortable for her family. They're very traditional, and with you looking so, well, you know. Plus, there's the whole social media aspect. She's worried about how the photos will be received." I sank onto the couch, feeling like all the air had been punched from my lungs. "So I'm being uninvited because I don't look old enough? Because I might embarrass Sarah on Instagram? Mom, please don't make this difficult. Sarah's really stressed about making everything perfect." Perfect. The word echoed in my head. I thought about all the times I'd seen Sarah post about her perfect wedding planning, her perfect engagement photos, her perfect future family. Somehow, a youthful-looking mother-in-law didn't fit into that perfect picture. "I pay for half the venue," I reminded him quietly. "We'll pay you back," he said quickly. Too quickly. Sarah's parents offered to cover it. That's when it hit me. This wasn't a sudden decision. They planned this, waited until everything was arranged, and now they were pushing me out. But why? There had to be more to this than just my appearance. Later that evening, my phone lit up with a text from Sarah. "I hope you understand, Olivia. We just want what's best for everyone. And don't worry about the venue payment. My parents are handling everything now." I stared at her message, noticing how she dropped the mom she'd been calling me for the past year. Something felt off about all of this. Sarah's parents weren't wealthy. They'd been clear about their budget limitations during the initial planning. So how could they suddenly afford to cover my portion of the venue? I called my best friend, Lisa, who had been helping with some of the wedding arrangements. "Something's not adding up," I told her. Sarah's parents couldn't even afford the flower arrangements last month, and now they're covering the venue. Lisa was quiet for a moment. Olivia, there's something you should know. I didn't want to tell you because I couldn't believe it myself, but I overheard Sarah talking to her mother at the cake tasting last week. She said something about once the papers are signed and the house will be ours. My blood ran cold. The house. My house. The one I'd inherited from my grandmother. The one I'd mentioned possibly signing over to Daniel as a wedding gift. But I hadn't told Sarah about that. I'd only discussed it with Daniel in private. There's more, Lisa continued. Sarah's been telling people you had work done, implying that's why you look young for your age. She's been painting this picture of you as some vain, superficial woman who cares more about appearances than family. I felt sick to my stomach. All those times Sarah had complimented my appearance, asked about my skincare routine, my exercise habits. She'd been gathering ammunition, building a narrative that would make my exclusion from the wedding seem reasonable rather than cruel. But as I sat there, processing everything, my phone buzzed with another message. This time, it was from Daniel's cousin Amy, who worked at the local courthouse. Olivia, you need to see something. Can you meet me tomorrow? It's about Sarah, and you're not going to like what I found. I stared at the message, my heart pounding. What else was Sarah hiding? And more importantly, what was she planning to do once she legally became part of our family? The next morning, I met Amy at a quiet coffee shop near the courthouse. Her face was tense as she slid a folder across the table. I shouldn't be showing you this, she said quietly, but I ran a background check on Sarah. Olivia, this is her third engagement in 5 years. And there's a pattern. My hands trembled as I opened the folder. Inside were court records, property documents, and newspaper clippings. Each told a similar story. Sarah had been engaged to wealthy men, all with close relationships to their mothers. In every case, family disputes erupted just before the wedding. Look at this, Amy pointed to a document. Her last fiancé's mother signed over her house 2 weeks before the wedding. A month later, Sarah broke off the engagement but kept the property through legal loopholes. The coffee in my stomach turned to acid. And the one before that? Same story, different asset, a vacation home in Colorado. Sarah claimed emotional distress after the breakup and threatened legal action. The family settled to avoid scandal. I thought about my house, my grandmother's house, and how close I'd come to signing it over to Daniel. Does my son know about any of this? Amy shook her head. I doubt it. She's careful. Changes her name slightly each time, moves between states. Most of this wouldn't show up in a regular background check. Just then, my phone buzzed. A text from Sarah. Olivia, I hope you're not upset about the wedding. I'm just trying to protect Daniel from any embarrassment. By the way, have you thought more about that wedding gift you mentioned? The audacity made my blood boil. She was still trying to manipulate the situation, even now. There's something else, Amy said, pulling out another document. Sarah's parents filed for bankruptcy 3 months ago. They couldn't afford a coffee maker, let alone a wedding venue. Then where's the money coming from? I asked, though I was beginning to suspect the answer. Credit cards, loans, all in Daniel's name. She's been adding herself to his accounts, taking out new cards. The spending started right after the engagement. I felt like I was going to be sick. My son wasn't just being manipulated, he was being set up for financial ruin. The wedding's in 2 weeks, I said. What am I supposed to do? Daniel won't believe me if I just tell him. Amy smiled grimly. That's why I brought this. She pulled out a USB drive. Security footage from the courthouse. Sarah came in last week with another man, discussing property transfers and prenuptial agreements. She didn't know I was working that day, or that our new security system records audio. I stared at the small drive that could blow Sarah's perfect plan apart, but I knew I had to be careful. If I moved too quickly, she'd find a way to spin it, to make me look like the villain. There's one more thing, Amy added. The wedding venue? Sarah's secretly moving it to a different location. Only certain guests are being told. I'm guessing you can figure out who's not on that list. It all made sense now, the sudden insistence on paying me back for the venue, the weird excuses about the rehearsal dinner. Sarah wasn't just trying to exclude me. She was planning to have the wedding without me even knowing where it was. I took a deep breath, feeling surprisingly calm. Okay, I said. Here's what we're going to do. I spent the next hour outlining my plan to Amy, It wasn't enough to just expose Sarah. We needed to make sure Daniel saw the truth for himself. And I knew exactly how to do it. As I left the coffee shop, my phone buzzed again. Another text from Sarah. Just wanted to check, you're okay with not coming to the wedding, right? Daniel's really hoping you won't make this difficult. We hate for this to affect your relationship with him. I smiled at my phone, thinking about the USB drive in my purse and the plan taking shape. Of course, I texted back, I understand completely. I just want what's best for Daniel. Sarah's reply was immediate. You're so understanding. I knew you'd see it my way. And about the house. I left her message unread. Let her think she'd won. In 2 weeks, on what should have been my son's wedding day, everyone would learn exactly why Sarah didn't want me there. And it had nothing to do with how young I looked. The day of the wedding arrived, bright and clear. Thanks to Amy, I knew exactly where the real ceremony was being held. A small chapel on the outskirts of town, not the venue Sarah had originally booked. I sat in my car, watching guests arrive. Sarah had invited everyone who mattered for her plan. Daniel's business partners, our extended family, and anyone who might have influence over future assets. She had even invited my elderly Aunt Helen, who owned significant property she had always promised to Daniel. At exactly 2 p.m., I walked into the chapel. The gasps were immediate. Olivia. Sarah's mother sputtered. You're not supposed to be here. Sarah, still in the bridal room, must have heard the commotion. She came rushing out, her white dress swishing dramatically. What are you doing? You can't be here. I smiled calmly. Actually, I can. You see, I own this chapel. The color drained from Sarah's face. What? I bought it last week. Interesting thing about property records. They are public. Just like bankruptcy filings, credit card applications, and court records from 2 other states. Daniel stepped forward, confusion written across his face. Mom, what are you talking about? Show them, I said to Amy, who was already setting up a projector. The security footage from the courthouse played on the chapel wall. There was Sarah, sitting with an unknown man, discussing her plans in detail. Once I get the house signed over, we'll proceed with our original arrangement. Sarah's voice rang clear through the speakers. His mother is the only obstacle, but I've convinced Daniel she's too embarrassing to have at the wedding. Once she's out of the picture. The footage continued, revealing every detail of Sarah's scheme. The planned asset transfers, the credit cards in Daniel's name, even her agreement with a mystery man to sell my house once it was in her possession. Turn it off, Sarah screamed, but it was too late. Daniel stood frozen, staring at the screen. The credit cards, the loans, that's why you insisted on joint accounts right after the engagement. Sarah's perfect mask cracked. Danny, I can explain. Like you explained to your last 2 fiancés, I asked quietly. Amy started distributing copies of the court records to the stunned guests. 3 engagements in 5 years, I continued. 3 families nearly bankrupted. 3 properties stolen or extorted. Did you really think no one would discover the pattern? The chapel erupted into chaos. Sarah's parents tried to slip out but were stopped by Daniel's cousin, a local police officer. We should probably discuss those fraudulent loan applications, he said. Daniel walked over to me, his face pale. Mom, I'm so sorry. I should have listened. I should have known you'd never. I pulled him into a hug, feeling his shoulders shake. It's okay, honey. She fooled a lot of people. Sarah made one last desperate attempt. Everything I did was for us, Danny. For our future. Your mother was trying to control you, to keep you from having the perfect life we deserved. The only thing my mother did, Daniel said firmly, was protect me from making the biggest mistake of my life. As Sarah was escorted out, still protesting, I looked around the chapel. The perfect wedding she had planned had indeed turned out to be unforgettable, just not in the way she had intended. Later that evening, Daniel and I sat on my porch at the house that had almost become part of Sarah's scheme. How did you know? He asked. About all of it. I smiled, thinking of my own mother, my grandmother, all the strong women who had taught me to trust my instincts. Sometimes, when someone tells you you're too much of something, too young, too old, too difficult, what they really mean is you're too hard to fool. Daniel nodded, understanding at last. I should have known that anyone who had a problem with you wasn't right for our family. As we sat there, I felt profound gratitude, not just for avoiding disaster, but for the chance to show my son what real family loyalty looked like. Sometimes, looking too young isn't a curse. It's just the universe's way of keeping you sharp enough to protect what matters most. And Sarah? Last I heard, she had moved to another state, probably in search of her next perfect target. But she had learned an important lesson. Never underestimate a mother who refuses to act her age. We've decided to make some changes to the beach trip. My mother-in-law's voice dripped with fake sweetness through the phone. The resort has limited space, and well, your three are just so energetic. We think it's best if they sit this one out. I gripped the kitchen counter, watching my kids, Emma 8, Lucas 6, and Sophie 4, playing in the backyard through the window. They'd been counting down the days to this family vacation for months, their beach toys already packed. Let me get this straight, Linda, I kept my voice steady. You're uninviting my children from the annual family beach trip, but taking all their cousins. Oh, don't be so dramatic, Alexandra. It's just that Melissa's kids are better behaved at these sorts of places, and Jessica's twins are more resort appropriate. We're staying at the Diamond Beach Club this year. It's very exclusive. Of course it was. My sister-in-law Melissa's country club membership probably got them the booking. She never let anyone forget her husband's banking career or her designer wardrobe. The kids have been looking forward to this for months, I said, watching Sophie chase butterflies in her dinosaur t-shirt. They already picked out special shells to give their cousins. Well, perhaps if you and David focused more on etiquette and less on letting them run wild. Linda's words twisted like a knife. Besides, we've already finalized the arrangements. Melissa's girls need their own suite, and Jessica's twins require the ocean view. There simply isn't space. I thought about last year's beach trip when my kids had been the ones to help clean up after meals without being asked while their cousins played on tablets. How Emma had shared her beach toys with everyone, and Lucas had helped his younger cousin overcome his fear of waves. Does David know about this decision? I asked, mentioning my husband. Oh, he understands. It's for the best, really. The Diamond Beach Club has standards. Just then, I heard squeals of laughter from outside. Lucas had set up the sprinkler, and all three kids were running through it, their joy pure and uninhibited. No designer clothes, no forced manners, just genuine happiness. You're right, Linda, I said finally. The Diamond Beach Club does have standards, and thankfully, so do I. What's that supposed to mean? It means my children won't be anywhere they're not fully welcomed. Enjoy your exclusive vacation. I hung up before she could respond, my hands shaking but my resolve firm. The kids were still playing outside, blissfully unaware that their grandmother had just deemed them unworthy of the family vacation. David found me at the kitchen table that evening, after the kids were in bed. One look at my face, and he knew something was wrong. Your mother called, I said quietly. She's uninvited our kids from the beach trip. Apparently, the Diamond Beach Club is too exclusive for children who actually act like children. His face darkened. She did what? Oh, but Melissa's perfect princesses and Jessica's designer twins still get to go, I added, unable to keep the bitterness from my voice. They're resort appropriate. I'll talk to her, David started, but I shook my head. No, I'm done trying to make your family accept our kids for who they are. They're kind, they're happy, and they're perfectly behaved. If that's not good enough for your mother's precious resort vacation, then we'll make our own plans. David was quiet for a moment, then asked, What are you thinking? I pulled out my laptop, opening a familiar webpage. Remember that cute little beach house we looked at last year? The one on Crystal Cove? It's still for sale. Alex, that's a huge investment. You know that inheritance I got from my grandmother. I've been saving it for something special. What's more special than showing our kids they don't need anyone's approval to be worthy of wonderful things? As I clicked through the photos of the modest but charming beach house, I thought about Linda's dismissive tone, Melissa's stuck-up attitude, and all the times our children had been made to feel less than by their father's family. Besides, I added with a small smile, Crystal Cove is known for its sea turtle nesting season. The kids would love that way more than some stuffy resort. David looked at the photos, then at me. You're serious about this? Dead serious. Let them have their exclusive resort. We'll build something better. Memories our kids will cherish forever, in a place where they'll never have to apologize for being themselves. What I didn't tell David was that I'd already checked the weather patterns for the summer. The Diamond Beach Club sat on a stretch of coast notorious for its hurricane exposure. Crystal Cove, protected by a natural barrier island, was significantly safer. But that would be their problem to discover later. As I send the email to the realtor requesting a viewing, my phone buzzed with a text from Linda. I hope you understand this is really for the best. The resort has such lovely etiquette classes for the other children. I didn't respond. Instead, I looked at the photos pinned to our fridge. Emma helping at the animal shelter, Lucas at his messy art show, Sophie proudly holding up a jar of bugs she collected. My wild, wonderful, uninhibited children who deserve so much better than being excluded by their own family. Let Linda have her exclusive resort vacation. We were about to create something far more valuable, a place where our children would never have to dim their light for anyone. Little did I know, summer had other plans for all of us. The beach house purchase moved faster than we expected. By early June, we were the proud owners of a cozy 3-bedroom cottage on Crystal Cove, just steps from the water. The kids' excitement when we showed them their new summer home made every penny worth it. We can watch the sea turtles from here, Emma asked, pressing her face against the window of what would be their shared bedroom. Better than that, I smiled. There's a sea turtle conservation program that lets kids help monitor the nests. I've already signed you up as junior volunteers. Their eyes lit up with pure joy, the kind that no exclusive resort could ever match. Meanwhile, snippets of the family's luxury vacation plans kept trickling in through group chats I hadn't been removed from. Melissa posted photos of her daughter's custom-made resort wear. Jessica shared screenshots of the Diamond Beach Club's amenities. Linda couldn't stop talking about the private cabanas and formal dinners. Did you see Mom's latest post? David asked one evening as we painted the kids' room a cheerful seafoam green. They've hired an etiquette coach for the cousins before the trip. I rolled my eyes. Because heaven forbid a child eat with the wrong fork while building sandcastles. The first hint that karma had plans came in mid-June. A small notice about unusual weather patterns forming in the Atlantic. I saw Linda's worried posts about hurricane season starting early, but she quickly assured everyone that the Diamond Beach Club had excellent indoor activities. We spent weekends getting the cottage ready, letting the kids pick out decorations and help paint shells to hang on the walls. Sophie's collection of beach treasures grew daily. Tiny crab shells, smooth stones, and sea glass filled jars along her windowsill. Then 2 weeks before their scheduled resort vacation, the weather reports turned serious. My phone rang on a Tuesday morning. Linda's name flashed on the screen. Alexandra, she said, her voice tense. I suppose you've seen the weather reports? About the potential hurricane? Yes, we've been monitoring it for our area too. Well, the Diamond Beach Club is being cautious. They're suggesting we might need to postpone. I could hear the panic beneath her forced calm. Non-refundable deposits had already been paid. Melissa's girls' custom wardrobes couldn't be returned. That's unfortunate, I replied, watching through the window as Lucas helped Sophie build a sandcastle. Crystal Cove is actually protected from the worst storms by the barrier island. We're still good to go with our plans. The silence on the other end was delicious. About that, Linda's voice turned syrupy sweet. We were thinking, since you have that cottage, perhaps we could all. Oh, Linda, I cut in, matching her false sweetness. The cottage isn't really up to resort standards. No etiquette coaches or private cabanas. The children might have to actually play in the sand and get their feet wet. I wouldn't want to subject your more refined grandchildren to such conditions. Another long pause. Alexandra, be reasonable. We're talking about family here. Exactly what I said when you uninvited my children from your vacation. The weather reports grew more ominous over the next few days. The Diamond Beach Club finally announced they were closing for the week of the planned vacation. No refunds. The family group chat exploded. Melissa. This is a disaster. The girls' resort wardrobes will be wasted. Jessica. The twins were still looking forward to the supervised beach meditation sessions. Linda. Alexandra, surely you can understand the position we're in. Your cottage is the only option now. I let them stew for a few hours before responding. While we'd love to help, we've already promised the kids they could invite their friends from the Sea Turtle program. You know, the ones who don't mind getting sandy or playing tag on the beach. The cottage will be quite full, with happy, energetic children enjoying their summer vacation exactly as children should. David, reading over my shoulder, tried not to smile. You're evil, you know that. No, I corrected him. I'm a mother protecting her children's joy. There's a difference. The next message came from Linda directly. We've already lost the resort deposits. Do you really want to punish the whole family because of one small misunderstanding? I looked at the photo I'd just taken of our kids, covered in sand, helping a marine biologist mark a new turtle nest, their faces glowing with purpose and excitement. No punishment intended, I wrote back. Just a valuable lesson about what really matters. By the way, the kids made these beautiful shell wind chimes in craft class today. Too bad their cousins will miss out on making their own. But I'm sure the resort's delayed etiquette classes will be just as meaningful. I attached the photo of my happy, messy, perfectly imperfect children. David wrapped his arms around my waist, watching the message bubbles appear and disappear as his family struggled to respond. You know they're going to hold this against us forever, he said. Maybe, I agreed. But our kids will remember this as the summer they learned that being themselves was more valuable than fitting someone else's standards. That's worth any amount of family drama. Outside, a baby sea turtle made its way to the ocean as our children watched in wonder, their cousins' formal resort wear and etiquette lessons forgotten in the magic of real life unfolding before them. Sometimes the best revenge isn't about getting even, it's about getting better. And as another hurricane warning lit up my phone, I couldn't help but smile at the perfection of nature's timing. The hurricane, as predicted, hit the Diamond Beach Club area hard. Meanwhile, Crystal Cove remained peaceful, protected by its natural barrier island, just as I'd researched months ago. Our cottage became a haven of summer memories while my in-laws scrambled to salvage their ruined vacation plans. Mom, look. Emma called out one morning, pointing to tracks in the sand. Another turtle nest. We gathered around as the conservation team marked the spot. My phone buzzed with yet another message from Linda. Surely you can make some room. The children are devastated about missing their vacation. I watched as Lucas carefully helped measure the turtle tracks while Sophie took notes in her junior volunteer notebook. These are the same children deemed too unruly for a resort vacation, now trusted by marine biologists to help with their research. The cottage is full of happy children, I replied, just not the ones you approved of. The photos we posted told the story better than words ever could. Our kids leading beach cleanups, Emma giving presentations to visitors about sea turtle conservation, Lucas teaching younger children how to identify different shells, and Sophie being interviewed by the local news about being the youngest Turtle Patrol volunteer. The comments poured in. What amazing children. Such wonderful community involvement. Future marine biologists in the making. Linda's response was telling. I suppose some children are better suited to outdoor activities. Yes, I wrote back. Some children are better suited to actually making a difference instead of learning which fork to use for salad. David found me on the deck that evening, watching the sunset. Mom's beside herself, he said, sitting next to me. Apparently, Melissa's girls are refusing to wear their resort outfits now. They want Turtle Patrol shirts instead. I couldn't help but laugh. How tragic. Designer wardrobes defeated by cotton t-shirts and a worthy cause. The breaking point came when the local paper featured an article on the Sea Turtle program, prominently showcasing our children. The photos showed them in their volunteer shirts, sandy and sunburned but beamy with pride, as they explained their work to the reporter. Linda's call came immediately. I suppose you think you've proved your point, she said when I answered. No point to prove, Linda. My children are exactly who they're meant to be, kind, curious, and passionate. They don't need a resort's approval to make a difference in the world. We could have given them connections, social skills, opportunities. They've made their own connections, I interrupted. With marine biologists, conservationists, and people who value substance over style. Those are the opportunities that matter. The summer ended with a celebration at the cottage. The kids had helped protect dozens of turtle nests, made lasting friendships with their fellow volunteers, and learned more about confidence and self-worth than any etiquette class could teach. As we packed up to head home, Emma handed me a jar of carefully collected shells. Can we give these to the cousins? She asked. They look kind of sad in their photos. My heart swelled with pride. Even after being rejected, my daughter's first instinct was still kindness. Of course we can, sweetie, and maybe next summer, if they're interested, they can join you on Turtle Patrol. The following week, we received an unexpected letter from the Diamond Beach Club. They were permanently closing due to hurricane damage. Linda's non-refundable deposits were lost. Meanwhile, Crystal Cove was featured in a national magazine for its successful sea turtle conservation program. The article included a photo of our kids helping a nest of hatchlings make their way to the sea. At a strained family dinner months later, Linda sighed. I suppose there's something to be said for more natural vacation experiences. I looked at my children, who were eagerly showing their cousins their Turtle Patrol badges and photos of baby turtles. There's something to be said for accepting people, especially children, exactly as they are, I replied. Sometimes the most precious things in life don't require a dress code. The next summer, our cottage hosted not just our kids, but their cousins too. Designer clothes replaced by volunteer shirts, etiquette lessons forgotten in favor of early morning turtle patrols. Even Melissa had to admit that her daughters seemed happier making a difference than making appearances. As I watched all the cousins work together to mark a new turtle nest, Linda appeared beside me. I was wrong, she said quietly, about the children, about everything. Yes, you were, I agreed. But they're teaching us all something valuable, aren't they? That true worth isn't about being resort appropriate. It's about being real, being passionate, and being kind. Later that evening, as the kids roasted marshmallows and shared turtle stories around our beach bonfire, I realized we had built something far more valuable than any luxury resort could offer, a place where children could be children, where differences were celebrated, and where the only standards that mattered were those of kindness and authenticity. Sometimes, the best revenge isn't about making others regret their choices, it's about creating something so wonderful that they can't help but wish they'd chosen differently. And as another turtle nest hatched under the summer stars, I knew we had given our children something priceless. The confidence to know that being themselves was always enough.